What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. So in this video, we are going to be talking about John Barron calling into C-SPAN. A man by the name of John Barron calling into C-SPAN to talk about the terrorists. And if you haven't heard about this, we're going to talk about it. We're going to have a little fun. As serious as we are a lot of times on this channel, I do every now and then like to have a little fun. So we're going to talk about this. And discuss it, and I'll show my opinion, I guess, about it. So thank you very much for joining me here, because it's got everybody in uproar. And the question of who it actually is. So welcome to Clear Talk. If you're new here, if you'd like to check out more videos from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all the good stuff to get more videos in front of more people, to help grow the channel and stuff. Big thing is subscriptions and comments, to help grow and help get more videos in front of more people to help it grow. So if you want to check out videos from my other channels, JMDPLAY Puzzling there. If you like what you see, consider subscribing to those as well. That would help out those channels amazingly. Patreon there, $3 a month. You can support any of the channels that you would like to help grow those channels, help grow Patreon, help grow JMD Nation. And to contribute however you would like to contribute to JMD Nation. Any contribution and support you give is very much appreciated, and I thank you very, very much. And if you're returning, you are freaking amazing. You are amazing. Welcome back, and I'll tell you that every time. Keep coming back. All right. So what are we talking about here? All right, there was a man by the name of John Barron that called in to C-SPAN a couple of days ago. And immediately after, there were many calls apparently coming in to C-SPAN from people questioning and wondering, was that Donald Trump? Because it very much sounded like Donald Trump. And it's got this whole thing going on now, where people are again, at the expense of Trump, laughing and having fun that that he would once again, because he's been known to do this before. He's been known to call into radio stations pretending to be somebody else to talk about or complain about something. And so he's back to his old antics is what some are thinking. In desperation over and his childish manner as he usually is. It's very funny. So we're going to check it out here. We swap over. Here is the video in question. All right, so let's play.
John in Virginia, Republican. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you ever have in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
We'll go to Chester.
Even her, even the C-SPAN anchor was like, okay, this can't be real. This is a hoax. This is fake. Whatever. Or let's do it again one more time.
Look in. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you ever have in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this
who
is
the
a
fuck is
terrible
Jack?
decision. And you have Hakeem.
Who is Jack? I don't even know who Jack is. Is it Jack somebody on C-SPAN, or is he like referring to somebody in the room? I don't, or a previous caller or something. I don't know. I don't know who Jack is, but okay, all right, whatever.
Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope.
He's a dope.
And you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said I
assume she's a woman. She's a Democrat, so Democrats are like all women are like, what was the argument there? All women are Democrats, or you assume that she's a woman because she sounds like a Democrat, but because she's a Democrat, she could be trans. So, like, I don't like. Oh, I don't know what the implication there was. um, that's whatever. That's wild.
Disgraced. She's devastated.
All right,
by
John.
this.
We'll go to Chester.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So yes, we have this from Newsweek saying a pseudonym used by Donald Trump in the 1980s and 1990s. Let me blow this up for you. I need to start doing. I'm sorry, I keep having to do this because I got a new monitor with a higher resolution, so everything is kind of smaller, and I'm not like I'm not quite used to blowing it up yet. Okay, like beforehand. A pseudonym used by Donald Trump in the 1980s and 90s popped up on Friday when an individual identified as a Republican for Virginia named John Barron called C-SPAN to complain about Democrats in the Supreme Court's tariff decision. The person spoke in a similar style to the president with the kind of cadence and intonations that have become synonymous with Trump. However, C-SPAN have said publicly that it was not the president himself calling, following widespread speculation. Of course. Because, I mean, for starters, you don't want to be C-SPAN, like, admitting that this is Trump, because then it would look like, to some degree, that they were, like, duped, at least, temporarily, by the president of the United States. But, I mean, that's one way to look at it. Although, I mean, you could argue that they quickly realized who it was, and that's the reason why they, kind of backtracked out of it as fast as they did. So I don't really know why. I mean, to some degree, they could make a good argument that they realized it fairly quickly, so it wasn't really that, and dropped them out, but whatever. Trump initiated the persona of John Barron in the 1980s, according to the Washington Post. The president used the persona to defend himself against criticism, according to a article published in the Post in 2016. The phone call came as the Supreme Court voted to strike down the sweeping tariffs imposed by the president under the IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, on Liberation Day in 2025. The court has grappled over whether the president had the authority to impose the tariffs, which we know they wind up, voting against him, 63. What do we know? In the phone call, the person speaking says, "This is John Barron, and look, this is the worst decision you have ever had in your life, practically. This is a terrible decision, and you have Hakeem Jeffries, who, he is a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course, these people are happy." The president said, I almost said, then social media kicked into overdrive, speculating that the president himself had made the call. The account Call to Activism wrote on X, despite denying it was him, CNN once aired all the times Trump called into journalists as John Barron in a post viewed 2.1 million times. Journalist Aaron Rupar also wrote on the platform in the post viewed 7.8 million times. A guy who claimed to be named John Barron and sounded a lot like Trump called into C-SPAN to complain about the Supreme Court's tariff decision and called Hakeem Jeffries a dope. John Barron is a pseudonym for Trump. He is used when talking to journalists. Following the speculation on X, the network clarified that it was not Trump calling because so many of you are talking about Friday's C-SPAN caller who identified himself as John Barron. We want to put this to rest. It was not the president. That post from C-SPAN added that Trump was in a widely covered and in-person meeting at the White House with governors at the time of the meeting. Or maybe at the time of the call? It's probably whatever. As soon as the identified person who called and identified themselves as John Barron has not been confirmed as such. But it is clear that it was not the president calling. I'm not so sure about that. So yeah, you have this guy calling in, claiming to be John Barron, which, don't get me wrong. There have been a number, and I mean a number, of people impersonating Trump especially here in this administration. But I mean, you've even had it back in the first administration. And no, since Trump has been on the scene, honestly, where people have been impersonating him relentlessly, and there's been a lot of them. And I would say some have gotten fairly close, and sound pretty good. And getting his, even to some degree, getting his mannerisms really well. His annotations and the way he sort of, his cadence and things like that. Like it said, um, because he has a very broken up speech, broken up way of talking. It doesn't form sentences in complete sentences like most people do. It's like chopped up, um, like kind of a point by point kind of way of speaking. And but here's my thing. Most of the time when people impersonate him, they tend to over exaggerate a little bit for fun, I mean, even when I do a little fun impersonation of him on my videos, and I know I'm not even getting remotely close, but I'm over exaggerating. I'm having a little fun with it. And I think most people that do the impersonations of him do this. But this caller, to me, felt like they were almost trying to suppress the fact that they were doing an impression. So it was like, it almost felt like, and that would be something that you would more than likely expect from someone who was actually that person, that they would try to suppress their voice or change their voice in some kind of way. But the one problem that most people can't do is change their cadence and stuff. They still tend to talk the way they talk, even if they do try to make an attempt at changing their voice. And so that's the reason why, for me, I am leaning a little bit more towards it actually being Trump. Now, no, like I said, don't get me wrong. It could be someone doing an impersonation for fun. Like, why here randomly doing it? I don't know, unless it was meant to be kind of a prank and somebody decided to do. And deciding to do it with the John Barron pseudonym that he has previously done in the past. But it was awfully damn close. Like, it sounds, even his vocal tone and everything sounded very, very, very much like Trump. It did. But like I said, it sounded like Trump trying to some degree suppress his own voice. So they was like if you think this man, if he was to make an attempt to call, but not wholly be himself, like pretend like he's trying to sound like somebody else, but doing a really bad job of it. I feel like he wouldn't make that hard of an attempt, because he doesn't really make that hard of an attempt to in much of anything outside of just being a horrible person. But like, I don't know, I just feel like it very well probably, there's a good chance, in my opinion, it was actually Trump, especially since he has done this before. And in the same manner of him doing it when he is under criticism, and he's trying to, in the people have called it, like, why would he call into C-SPAN? Like, they're surprised that he's even watching C-SPAN. But I'm not so sure. This man seems to be watching all the news. He seems to be watching everybody. What is going on to some degree. Probably mostly Fox News, but he's certainly watching multiple news stations. But if he wanted to actually call in and argue against the tariffs like he was, it would need to be, honestly, to a station that doesn't so much favor him, so to speak. It would be, Because if he was to call into Fox News or something like that, and he'd just be calling in and talking to his own people, which he enjoys doing very much so, but he would not need to make an argument against it. It would be him bashing, like, in agreement with the network and what they were saying. So I feel like this was probably somewhere where he was, he come across C-SPAN at some point and heard a caller talking badly about him or about the tariffs or whatever, and he felt the need to defend himself against criticism, and that's what he did. And again, I find it so childish and funny. Like, why not just call as yourself? I mean, if you are such a strong man as he acts like he is, and doesn't care about what people think or say, then why not just call as yourself? You could literally phone in. He could literally phone in and be like, "This is Donald Trump. I want to respond to the caller previously, and let your viewers know, blah 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 blah. I don't agree with this, and this is blah 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 blah." I mean, he could have. I don't see a problem with that. It's not like he hasn't talked to news stations before, and hasn't done little interviews before. So I just find it interesting and funny that. Now, again, this could have been. I'm not marking that it could not have been an impersonator, because it very much could have. But it just feels like if it was an impersonator, they would have more than likely been a little bit over the top, like most are. And that's the reason why I kind of lean a little bit more towards it actually being Trump. But is this just a funny thing? It doesn't really matter, in my opinion. Honestly, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of all of it. But it's just funny that even at this late, and maybe even speaks to partially to the dementia question, and like him falling back into old practices and old characteristics or whatever, old shenanigans. I just think it's funny. But let me know what you think. Do you think it was Trump, or do you think it was just a really good impersonator trying to play a little prank? In other words, do you believe C-SPAN, or do you believe that Trump is actually so taken back by this decision, so in his feelings about this decision, that he would feel the need to call in and pretend to be somebody else just to get a point across, or just to defend himself? I think it's hilarious. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me, and until next time, peace. ClearTalk, I'm out.